laughing aloud now, magic in the air. Wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find. Spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so wizardful.
Chris Perkins done with Dungeons and Dragons? Not quite. What's up, nerds? It's your boy, the OG GM, coming to you live at 8 o'clock in the morning on this, the 16th day of October, 2024. It is dark and gloomy outside. Perfect Halloween weather. It's Wednesday, which means it's time for the #1 rated television show in all of tabletop role-playing game. That's So Wizirds! That's So Wizirds is filmed live in front of a studio audience consisting of Steve the Cat. How y'all doing today? The #1 story today is Chris Perkins coming out of nowhere, making a statement that he is done. No, but he has said that the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide is the last official product he'll be working on as Product League. A number of sites have been posting previews of the Dungeon Master's Guide. We'll be going over those soon. And there's Chris saying, well, this is my last one. He's made contributions to the Monster Manual, which doesn't really mean anything, Chris. Come on. Monster Manual was literally the easiest of the three to make. All you had to do is go back over 50 years of content, cut, paste, change a few numbers. But that's his product lead. After this, he's done, I don't know. I mean, he's still listed as a game architect, which I don't know what that means. And he helps manage the design teams for the game. He's worked on story lead for several long campaign-focused adventures. And he goes to several conventions, and of course his association with conventions and Acquisitions Incorporated, and just sort of being the face of Wizards of the Coast for a long time, including being the #1 target for a lot of the hate. It goes without saying. I have had conversations with Chris Perkins in the past. I regularly comment on how unhealthy and how unhappy he looks when you look at his interviews, especially when he's being interviewed in the same room with Crawford. And we know that Crawford and Perkins are on opposite sides of the building. Make of that what you will. I'm not trying to spread gossip, but I have said repeatedly, he doesn't look happy when he's talking about D&D. But if you watch him when he's on stage or when he's doing the YouTube with Acquisitions Incorporated, he looks happy. That's the Chris Perkins of old. That's the Chris Perkins before all this 5e nonsense began. So I have been saying for a while that he should, step down. Chris Perkins needs a hug and a sandwich. He doesn't look like he wants to be there. That's just my personal opinion. Obviously, I have no actual facts. I mean, I've spoken to Perkins maybe twice versus in emails. So it's not like we're friends. So don't take this as gospel. This is just my opinion, my emotions, what I think. I think he's not happy, and he hasn't been happy for a while. I think he loves Dungeons and Dragons, and I think on some level he doesn't like the direction Dungeons and Dragons is going. If you watch the way he runs, if you watch the way he plays, if you watch when he talks about it when Perkins isn't there, as opposed to the interviews with him and Perkins and Todd, they're two different people. So maybe he's just tired. I mean, he's been doing this for a long time, and if anybody at Wizards deserves to not be the topic and the subject of all the slings of arrows, it's Perkins. Perkins is one of the last people at Wizards of the Coast I still respect. He wrote he's partially responsible for my favorite Wizards of the Coast 5th edition adventure. And he generally seems like a good guy. So I don't know what this means. He's still technically listed as Wizards of the Coast staff. He's still technically listed as he's going to be part of the 2024-2025 Dungeon Master's Guide Monster Manual Media Scrum. Media Scrum, that's a word. I didn't know that was it's a word. I don't know what it means, but Scrum is a word. I think it's from sports. But after that, who knows? Maybe he's just taking a step down. Maybe he's deciding to take some time off. Maybe he actually is unhealthy. Some people have commented that he kind of looks like somebody who has cancer. Again, hearsay, purely rumor. I am not saying with any level of expertise what Chris Perkins' health is. From my point of view, when I look at him, he doesn't look happy. He doesn't look healthy. He looks like he needs a hug and a sandwich. But that's my personal view. Please do not go around saying, oh, the OGGM said that Chris Perkins has cancer. That's 100% not true. I have heard other people say it, though. But again, no one knows. Chris Perkins is the only person who knows what's going on with Chris Perkins. This could mean nothing. I mean, it could be nothing. Oh, I'm not product lead anymore, but it could be nothing. But Wizards of the Coast makes up titles. So not being product lead could be absolutely nothing. He could have a new title next year. You know, he's listed as a game architect. That's not a title. It's not a job. You do not go to school for gaming architecture. There's no degree in game architecture. So yeah, I don't know. This could mean absolutely nothing. It could mean that he's leaving. It could mean that he's just taking on a more behind the scenes role. It could be that he's more focusing on the media stuff and less on the game stuff. And he's just so busy going around doing conventions, he doesn't have time. I don't know. It could mean nothing, but it is the number one story. So obviously, Chris Perkins, wish you nothing but the best, nothing but health. If there's, I, again, think he should leave Wizards. He doesn't, in my opinion, look happy. But what do we know? Okay, is there anything else going on with Wizards of the Coast today? Yes, there is, and it mostly involves the Dungeon Master's Guide. And, generally, other than the complaints about the art, which have only been about one, nothing really bad has been said about the Dungeon Master's Guide 2024 by the few people who have reviewed it. Now, obviously, the few people who have reviewed it, like Jeannie D, are paid shills, so they're not going to say too much bad about it. But some of the people, generally are just saying it's harmless. It's not necessary. It feels just sort of like a waste of paper. There's a lot of hullabaloo over what's going on with the Grayhawk thing and, wasted space over maps. And, of course, art, because that's the thing we focus on. Why does that dwarf have his shotguns? There's no shotguns in Dungeons and Dragons. Blah, 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 blah. There's no tacos in Dungeons and Dragons. Blah, 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 blah. He's holding the shotgun wrong. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so Wizards of the Coast has announced that we're scrapping the idea of 6 to 8 encounters per day. Has anybody ever been in an adventure where there's 6 to 8 encounters? I don't think I've ever been in a game with 8 encounters. Average, I think the most fights I think I've ever had is maybe 4. And, I used to play like 10-hour games. 4 or 5, that was like usually it. Some of those encounters would last a long time, but 8? That was a recommendation. But then Wizards also recommends you don't do experience, you do milestones. So how really cares how many encounters you throw at them? Also, we've got to look at some art. Every time they post an article, we get to look at some art. And since we know that sooner or later, the art controversy will start rotating. So again, here we have the dreamy style of, sort of this weird, somebody told me the name of this art style and I forgot it. I'm sorry, but there is a name for this art style. It's very watercolory. Again, we have, this is the new Black Dragon, very obvious with the new shape of the Black Dragon, that this is the new Black Dragon. Why is a Black Dragon hanging out with zombies? I don't know. We've got some zombies. This guy's wearing a baseball hat. So, I mean, okay. Whatever. This guy, the dragon's got one hand here, one hand here. We've got a cleric who, even though the undead are over here, is looking over here. Yeah, whatever. It's harmless. And here's the article about how they've changed how to do encounters and stuff like that. Who cares? We have some information on the DM's Toolbox, which I think is what most people are curious about and what we can actually expect from the new DM's guide. Is it worth it? Got another picture here of an Athilid, Mind Flayer, whispering to a fire giant. hints of a return to Against the Giants, because why not do that one more time? Well, we haven't done it under the new 6th edition rules yet, so we're going to do Return to the Giants again because we have no original ideas. Okay, so each entry is about 1 page, 2 pages long. We've got entries on creating monsters, fear, mental stress, chases, firearms, explosives, traps. Remember when I read this thing about the, and then it turned out I was reading the wrong thing, but it looks like it's still the same. I mean, a lot of this information doesn't need to be in the DM's guide. It's things that should be in the player's handbook, right? Like the rules on bastion building or the rules for gear building and stuff like that. Those are things that players need to know about. Settlement trackers, that should be in both books, but yeah. You know, here's the stuff like rolling up random settlements, hazards, mob rules, rewards to give them. Those are all things that are important. Rules on chases, like a chase has ever worked in a tabletop role-playing game. Rules on fear and mental stress, considering Wizards of the Coast's current operating procedure regarding mental and emotional health of their players, because a game company, it should be talking about mental and emotional health. Yes, because they're qualified. I'm not surprised that there's a thing in about fear and mental health and 2 or more pages about fear and mental health. I'm sure a very large chunk of the game is dedicated to safety tools because 1, it's important, and 2, if we throw a lot of big psychological words, we can fill up space that we could have used for, you know, actual content and art. 71 new pages of art. And of course, a lot of enough new maps that if you took all the maps out, they would fill a box. And yeah, so I don't know. This doesn't really tell me much of anything except there's going to be sections on DM's tools. Okay, that goes without saying that there should be sections on DM's tools. It's the DM's guide, right? I don't know. It seems like that's a thing. The Universal Fan Fest is coming up, and of course, Wizards wants you to think that the Universal Fans Fest is just Universal buying into D&D. And now I guess Universal is canon in D&D. No, the Fan Fest is going to be covering several IPs. Dungeons and Dragons is just one of them. It's going to be done much the same way that Halloween Horror Nights are, that they'll have, you know, these houses or whatever dedicated to the theme, but not as scary as Halloween Horror Nights. So they'll have like Harry Potter, of course. Star Trek is one they're doing, even though Universal doesn't own Star Trek. Probably a Transformers one and a D&D one, which will feature probably a large animatronic of Xanther. If you've ever watched the videos of Halloween Horror Nights, a lot of the mazes are disappointing. And I kind of expect this to work like a lot of the mazes at Halloween Horror Nights, where you have lots of dark corridors, lots of themed artwork, but the actual haunt is just 1 or 2 really cool looking animatronics and a bunch of actors making jump scares. They're, you know, some would say the quality has gone down in the haunts. I don't know. I do expect that there'll probably be a giant Xanther animatronic. Also, we can look at the last time a company did a IP related thing like this, which would be the Willy Wonka thing. And yeah, that was a disaster. So, but yeah, it's happening. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if anybody cares, but it is happening. And I'm sure some people will go. I don't know why that's important, but Wizards wants you to know that they're doing this. Okay. So we know Chris Perkins, no longer product lead. Dungeons & Dragons has done away with the adventuring day, which means absolutely nothing. What are you going to do? Enforce it? We got more sneak peeks of the Dungeon Master's Guide, which means more art we can make fun of. Wait, what Willy Wonka thing? When the Willy Wonka movie came out, what was it, last year? They did a fan fest. And basically they just rented out an empty building and they put up some multicolored screens. They got like one or two props, and it was like this one lady dressed up like an Oompa Loompa giving away candy, and that was it. And people were like, I spent $22 for this piece of shit. So I don't know, it's not that high of a bar to top, but that's what I'm expecting. Let's see what else we got. Thank you as always, Ian World, for providing these. They're also on, Polygon. All the websites have these. So this is one of the covers. Venger, Warduke, and this lady. I'm behind him is the ghost of a dragon. And then some undead. And then this is, I guess they're in the Underdark. We've got the new design goals. Here's what the new layout looks like. Sections on philosophy. If you're having fun, you're playing D&D right. What? DM character tracker, NPC trackers. These are all good. How to get started as playing, adventure generators, all things I'd expect to see. Toolboxes, maps. Why have information when we can just fill pages with maps and art? The Bastion tracker, really, that should be in the player's handbook. Magic item tracker, again, should be in the player's handbook. Picture of this weird flooded town. I've also been told this is Grayhawk. I just do not get this picture, but okay. Just more of the same. This is the philosophy. This is the section that everybody really cares about. The magic items. Rules on the bastions. Rules on lore. I don't really know if that's really information. Do we really need to know that whose daughter is who and stuff like that? Running the game. That should be the most important section. Odds and ends. Here we've got a picture of Our Lady of Pain showing up in the middle of Sigil, which would never happen, but okay. And you also get a new DM screen. Here's a little weird druid shenanigans going on. It looks very classic art, like something you'd see in a museum made a long time ago by some guy with from France or something. I don't know. The art this way is not as offensive as the one for the last one, so I'm okay with the art so far from what I've seen. I'm sure somebody will find some problem with it. Now let's get to the big one. We've been saving the best for last, the Grayhawk shit, because we know that there's going to be a sample campaign adventure in the DM's guide about set in Grayhawk. Now, we also know that Trollord Games has got the rights to Gary Gygax's stuff, including all the Grayhawk stuff. They just can't use the name Grayhawk, so they've been using it under a different name, Castle Zaggy and stuff like that. So, and they changed the city's name, but it's Grayhawk. But they can't use the word Grayhawk because Wizards owns the word Grayhawk. So Wizards can release Grayhawk, and Trollord Games can release Grayhawk, but Trollord's game is the true keepers of the Gary Gygax legacy. And if you really want to see all the stuff that Gygax meant for Grayhawk to be past, present, and future, I'd keep an eye on what Trollord Games is doing. Wizards said, we're doing Grayhawk, and people got all excited. And then they said, but no, it's just going to be the short sample adventure in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And people got like, well, why bother? If you're not going to do Grayhawk in the future, why not focus on the Forgotten Realms? Since that seems to be your bread and butter, just make that the sample adventure. And now they have unlocked Grayhawk on DM's Guild. So now if you want to write a third-party adventure set in the worlds of Grayhawk and submit it to the DM's Guild, you can. And we even have some officially licensed legacy content that is now available on Dungeon Masters Guild. If you ever want to get some stuff that you might be missing, I'm seeing Tomb of Horrors for $6, City of Grayhawk for $14. These are all PDFs, of course. Against the Slave Lords. Wow, they released Against the Slave Lords for $10. Temple of Elemental Evil, all the different versions of it. Vecna Lives. So yeah, just a hodgepodge of stuff, all set in and around Grayhawk, except for Tales of the Yawning Portal, which isn't in Grayhawk. It's in the Forgotten Realms. But okay, sure. Now here's another one that's a Forgotten Realms adventure. Yeah, they're okay. Grayhawk. Forgotten Realms. Okay, none that Adventurers Guild. This one wasn't Forgotten Realms or Grayhawk, but all right. I wonder if they have the comedy version of the Grayhawk dungeon on there. Remember the comedy version? So anyways, yeah, so you could make a Grayhawk themed adventure based upon 2024 Grayhawk, even though you don't have it yet. And it's only going to be a little teeny short version of it in the DM's Guild. And you can put it on the DM's Guild if you want to. And when I was reading the responses to this, somebody said, oh, yay, great. I can make Grayhawk stuff and put it on the DM's Guild and not worry about Wizards of the Coast getting the rights to it. Yeah, I think we talked about that already, about what's going on with the DM's Guild in relationship to the new Wizards of the Coast contract, specifically this one. So before you start getting all excited about what you can and can't do with the product, I recommend you read every single word of the submission contract as it stands now in regards to 6th edition content, and in regards specifically to 6th edition content built around Grayhawk. Yeah, it'd probably be easier just to use the Castles and Crusades open source, make it for your Zaggy and their Gagak stuff, and just not use the word Grayhawk. Now, right now, the DM's Guild is not part of Wizards, but the new SRD, of course, will apply to anything you make for Grayhawks. And while most of us in the general public haven't seen the new rules, we do know that the new rules have already been made, and several companies have already agreed to it. And from what we've heard, it's pretty draconic. It's pretty much what you expect. I mean, if you submit something to Wizards, it becomes Wizards. And now with the new AI thing, they can do whatever they want with it. And they don't have to tell you, and they don't have to pay you. So they can change your product, use your product, take parts of your product, put it in other products, whatever they want. It's theirs. Submitting to DM's Guild, you have a little bit more leeway for now, but there's a very large possibility that it could go the same way that submitting straight to D&D Beyond goes. Hopefully, the people who run DM's Guild and the Adventurers League are hoping that another company buys them out so they don't have to worry about being gobbled up at Wizards. But right now, if Wizards decides that they want to make DM's Guild Adventurers League 100% theirs, then yes, going forward, anything you submit would fall under the new 6th edition SRD, and the new it's ours, you can't do anything about it. Now, there's never anything saying you couldn't make Grayhawk stuff before today. Oh, now you can make Grayhawk stuff. I can make Grayhawk stuff yesterday. Where does it say I can't? People have been making Grayhawk stuff for years. Well, now you can do it officially. When couldn't I? Please show me the point of time when I could not use the word Grayhawk on a product, because I can show you product that's been made, set in Grayhawk, before today. But okay, Wizards, you do you. Enjoy that Grayhawk stuff as much as you can. Just hawk the Grayhawk to the Hockey McHawk. because despite all the excitement, despite opening up the license, despite saying, oh, now everybody and their dog can make Grayhawk stuff, but only for now. Because once that Dungeon Master's Guide is gone, and they're focusing on the next product, now they're saying, well, we may not come back to Grayhawk. I'm sure it has nothing to do with what's going on with Troll Lords Games or the recent TSR shenanigans, or just the fact that they don't think they can push Grayhawk the way they can push Forgotten Realms. I mean, remember when they said they weren't going to be focusing on any one word and 6th edition was going to be world agnostic? It's what was Crawford said, it's going to be Planescape. It's always been Planescape, and the Forgotten Realms were just part of Planescape. But D&D has always been Planescape, all the way back to Gygax. From day one, it's always been about Planescape. That's always been the meta engine behind all of D&D, especially 5th edition. And going into 6th edition, it's going to be all about Planescape, which is why we're making sure that the example game in the Dungeon Master's Guide is a product line we've paid no attention to before, and we're probably never going to pay attention to ever again. Grayhawk. Of all our licenses, Grayhawk. Even though our competitor is doing a much better job with Grayhawk, we're going to do Grayhawk, but only for a few minutes. And then will we go back to it? No, because we've already said we're going to do Forgotten Realms again. Well, the Sword Coast. We're going to ignore the rest of the Forgotten Realms and focus on the Sword Coast. No. I know we said we weren't going to focus on any one word, but we said that 5 minutes ago, and we do not remember anything we say in the history. So the history is only for this moment in time. It completely ignore anything they said before today, and don't count anything they say until after today. But for right now, for this right moment, in the little fishbowl of the 5-second memory of Wizards of the Coast, they are telling us, well, we're probably not going to go back to Grayhawk. Depends on how much money it makes us, right, Chris? Right? Huh? Right? Huh? Now, if the Grayhawk thing makes us a lot of money, and a lot of people say the only reason why I'm buying this is to see new Grayhawk, then I wouldn't be surprised if sometime or after Q1 in 2025, they're like, hey, we're going to do more Grayhawk stuff. Well, as much as we can get away with, because, Troll Lord Games owns a huge chunk of it. But yeah, we can do Grayhawk. We can do anything and just slap the Grayhawk name onto it. It's our word. Troll Lord Games can't use that word. But for now, be excited because you can play around with Grayhawk, even if they don't plan on returning to it. I don't know. I feel like sometimes we're now just desperate to find things that Wizards of the Coast have done wrong. It's been 3 weeks and not a single person has posted about how they're offended by the art. Nobody's really up in arms over the controversies regarding the DM's Guide. All the reviews of the DM's Guide that are out there are pretty much just, it exists. Most of it feels like, whatever. I might, I seem to recall somebody getting a lot of shit for not reading the DM's Guide from page 1 to page 300 and, only using the stuff that was important to the actual content. And I feel like despite all the hullabaloo everybody gave about how you have to read the rules from page 1 to page 101 and know them by heart and know exactly what it says in chapter 3, paragraph 15, line 3, most of the people who are reviewing it are saying the same thing. It's like, I'll use what I'm going to use, but do I really need to know the rules for chases if I'm never going to use them, or what the weather of Grayhawk is like if I'm not running weather? No. The DM's Guide has always been, well, I'll use what I'm going to use, and I don't really need to read the stuff that has absolutely no implication for what I'm using, except if I need to use it in the future, then hopefully the glossary and the appendix are good enough that I can look it up and go, oh, there that thing is. And now I know that. So yeah, pretty much what we're seeing is there's nothing really offensive. There's nothing really groundbreaking. It feels very safe. It feels very what we expect for Wizards. It feels very like they didn't really put a lot of thought into it. You know, I can come up with a list of things people would want to see in a DM's guide, I assume, but or how big they think a DM's guide should be, but each individual needs are individual to them. So if you're gonna get this, you'll take from it what you want and you'll ignore what you don't, or you won't get it at all because you feel like you don't need it because everything in there is already available to you in another source. There's nothing new or exciting or different in this, guys. The Bastion rules, the magic item creation rules, which are all things that should be in the player's handbook, by the way. It's not like they're exciting. It's not like you can't find them for free online anyways. There's nothing really, I need to have this. Random tables, there's already hundreds of books with random tables out there for 5e, 6e, OSR. 90% of those books are going to be better. Magic items, well, you got pages and pages and pages and pages and pages out there of magic items for 5e, 6e, OSR, as good or better than anything the DM's guide. You know, I mean, the classics aren't even going to be, we don't even know what's going on with like the classics. They're going to be changed. The rest of it is frou-frou stuff that people mostly are like, oh, 3 whole chapters on safety tools. I don't care. The DM's guide should be showing people how to DM Dungeons and Dragons or any game. Literally in the title. Show me how to be good at this thing. But who knows? Because Chris Perkins isn't in charge of product anymore. So who knows what 2025 Dungeons and Dragons are going to look like. It could be awesome. It could be awful. It could just be more of the same as we slowly travel downstream towards that 2027 doom date and the inevitable 2030 end. Who knows? At some point, you just got to go, you know what, OGGM? That's so Wizards!
We're laughing aloud now, magic in the air. Wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find. Spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so wizard, oh, 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 oh. Life is a spell we know. We're casting joy and glow.